everyone. Hope you and your ohana are well. Mahalo for joining us today, you in person as well as you out there in Zoom land. I'm Mike Gabbard, State Senator representing District 21, which includes Kapolei, Makakilo, Honokai'ahale, Kalailoa, and portions of Ewa. And I've represented this area since 2006 when I was first elected to the legislature. Prior to that, I served 2 years on the Honolulu City Council representing District 1, which our guest speaker today currently represents. And this is my 7th year as chairing the Committee on Agriculture and the Environment. So things are going hot and heavy down at the legislature as we move toward the halfway point of our session, which started on January 18th and ends on May 4th. And FYI, for you first timers, we usually start these committee meetings on time at 9 a.m. and we try to finish at 10 a.m. So today, for the first half of the meeting, we have in person Honolulu City Councilwoman Andria Tupola. She'll be giving an update on homelessness, public safety, housing, and the cost of living, and there'll be time for Q&A. But if we do run out of time and you don't get a chance to speak, please send me an email and we'll follow up with you with your issue of concern. Come on in. Aloha. So a brief introduction. Councilwoman Andria Tupola, representing District 1, which is from Ewa Beach to Kaena Point. And her term is, current term is 2021 to 2025. In 2014, Andrea was elected to represent District 43 in the State House, which is Ewa and Tumaili. And in 2015, she became the first Samoan woman to serve as the State House Minority Leader. And in 2016, she was reelected to another term in the House. In 2018, she was a Republican nominee in the Hawaii governor's race. And then on January 2nd, 2021, she was sworn in to Honolulu City Council and floor leader to represent District 1. So again, there'll be time for Q&A. Andrea.
I'll go assume my place in the seat. Hey, hi, Alex Teese online. Aloha, I'm Andria Tupola. Hello, everyone in the room. Hi, good morning. Thank you so much, Senator Gabbard. I do believe when I was first elected years ago, I came to one of your talk stories, so it's great to be back. Same place, same time, same happy faces. So yes, I've been in the City Council since 2021. But I'm very versed with this area because of prior serving in the legislature. So just following behind Senator Gabbard's steps, a little bit city council, a little bit legislature. We both have a passion to serve the community. And it's been one of my driving forces is to help uplift and change the lives of the people that I serve. And so aside from the things that I do in the city council, I do try to find ways to advocate. Today, I'm going to cover some of the legislative things that we've been doing at the council, share some of the community efforts that we have going on, and then I'll open up for Q&A. So first off, talking about housing, I specifically have been trying to champion a lot of the issues that we have with the Department of Planning and Permitting. That is a big issue in the city. I had a town hall last year in Kapolei, which is where my office is. I have one there and one in Honolulu, so if you ever want to stop by, we are there. When we had the town hall, we had the former director, Dean Uchida, there, and we had found out at that meeting that we had about 8,000 outstanding permits in the pipeline, which historically is a significant amount. And so after that meeting, shortly after, Dean had resigned, and we just actually confirmed the new director. Her name is Donna Puna. But my efforts have been to work with the new director and try to find ways we can streamline this process. I specifically have helped Alex Teese, who's online. I've helped many people here, Olive Garden included, all of these guys at Kamakanali'i. Unfortunately, one of the things that I hope we can kind of realize as a city is that delayed permits affect people's lives, their jobs, their homes, their employees. It's a huge cost. I think the backlog of 8,000 permits actually equals billions of dollars. And if you weren't following the news stories, I also covered in the news that 75% of these backlog permits are residential. So we're not talking about large projects, commercial projects. We're talking about people that want to do their fence. They want to remodel their home. They want to rebuild their home. And it's unfortunate because the cost of living here in Hawaii is already very high. A delayed permit for over a year or 2 years means that you might have to reapply for a loan, which the rates are going up. Your building materials have now gone up because you waited over a year or 2 years for this permit. So coming up in the zoning hearing on Wednesday, next week, March 1st, they'll be hearing one of many of my bills that I'm trying to introduce that is trying to streamline this process. Bill 56, I drafted with the department and tried to add a few things to the exemption list. So in the Department of Planning and Permitting, in Chapter 18, we list a handful of things that don't need a permit, right? And some of them are very small things, 30-inch fences, component replacement. So due to the cost of inflation in this bill, I'm suggesting that perhaps in a prior year, component replacement of $5,000 or less was reasonable, but now with the cost, $5,000 could be a countertop, it could be the tiles in your home. So we're going to suggest that we move that up to kind of equate to the cost of materials and cost of living today. I'm also suggesting for electrical upgrades within a calendar period that we increase that amount too. So if you want to testify on that bill and specifically speak out on the permitting issues we have, you can join the zoning hearing at 9 a.m. next Wednesday. The second thing I wanted to talk about was public safety. We're also going to be hearing a resolution that I put forward next Thursday in the public safety hearing, Resolution 22250, that suggests that we start to fully utilize the Waianae Police Station. So let me take you guys way back before Kapolei was a city. The only police stations on this side was Waianae and Pearl City. There was no Kapolei Police Station. So the main West Side station was Waianae. Way back during Mayor Hanneman's time, they decided to upgrade the station. They put in $16 million to rebuild the Waianae station, enlarge it, create 2 stories, put pumps out there, and basically try to increase the amount of police presence we have on the west side. That was in 2016. Since 2016, the station has still remained vacant. So the whole upstairs is empty. It's like an empty shell. We only have about 1 officer there per shift every day, which usually the officer is working an overtime shift because we don't have enough people in District 8, which is where we are. Police District 8 is from Eva to Kaena Point. Within the district, we have various beats and various sectors. My concern that I brought to the administration and to the chief is that we have a booming population out here. We have grown by over 20% just in my district alone. Councilmember Augie Toba is adjacent to my district, and his district grew by 10%. So this side of the island needs more police presence. In an average day, we have only 2 officers in every beat area, and 2 officers handle every call that comes into 911. And that could be a domestic violence call, that could be a traffic fatality, that could be somebody that needs assistance. So again, the police department itself is having a severe amount of shortages of officers. Right now, we are in a deficit of 364 officers that we are looking for. I've met with Shopo and asked them to work on a supplemental collective bargaining agreement to get incentive for officers to join the force. Now, just so everyone knows, this is not unique to Hawaii. Because of national movements that have been happening, it is now not very attractive to be a police officer. And so across the United States, they are offering incentives for people who join the police academies and join the police force. I think that we need some of these, perhaps a $1,500 housing stipend for people entering the academy. On an average year, we have about 60 new officers coming in with various academies, but we have more than that many officers retiring every year. So in order for us to not break even every year, we need to incentivize this, which is what I covered also in my resolution 22250. The last thing that I wanted to touch on before I do a few Kapolei infrastructure updates is I have been doing more work with homelessness. Since our new administration has come in, which is Mayor Blangiardi, we have had quite a bit of turnover, meaning that we've had new directors for the Department of Community Services come in. We're on our 4th director in 2 years. It's been a little difficult, and actually right now our housing director position is vacant. And so I decided last year that I was going to just create my own district plan for the West Side and what we could do with homelessness. So the plan that I created is called Restore, Reconnect, Revive. The idea is that we need to restore public places to the public. We need to reconnect homeless individuals with services, IDs, documentation, and housing that they need. And lastly, we need to revive how we're doing our homeless outreach. So I did a pilot project from August to November last year. We did it in one small area, in one small little 2-block radius, because what I believe is that we can make a bigger impact if we work in smaller segments. So instead of saying, we're going to handle homelessness from Eva to Kaena Point, which is overwhelming. In fact, right now, our service provider is Kealoha West. And from Eva to Kaena Point, they have 2 outreach workers. 2. And these are wonderful ladies. I love them. But 2 ladies working out there trying to go from person to person and help them is overwhelming. So part of why I wanted to run this pilot project was so that I could see the problems face to face and that I could come up with a solution. So during a 16-week period, we did hot meals for 4 days a week, and we did it from 5 to 6 at a local church who opened up their venue for us for free. And we had that church work with the homeless directly in front of their church. So I didn't say, bring all homeless from all areas. I said, let's just work with the people right in front of your church and see if we can service them. Now, this is a different concept because I actually had to turn away people from other areas because I told them, if we help less people, we can do more for them. And in a little while, I will set this up across the Leeward Coast, and then we can help more people. And a lot of the homeless individuals understood that. They understood that the more people I help, the less helpful I become because we didn't have any funding for this. Well, within that 16-week period, we were able to house 16 people. We housed 2 families, a young lady that was pregnant, and many others I helped to get jobs through White and Ice Store. Now, fast forward till today. Now that I understood how the program worked, of course, I have a handful of suggestions for the administration. I've already met with the mayor, gave him my ideas on where we could tighten things up. I launched the project in 6 areas. And in fact, there's one here in Kapolei. So every Wednesday from 12 to 1, and thank you, Dream House, because they're out there with me, I work with Ulua'e. So that's run by Mikiala Lidstone. She's a kumuhula in this area. Mikiala's organization, as well as Dream House, every Wednesday, they meet me up there at Kapolei Regional Park. We're at the top of the parking lot. We set up a tent. We have providers come help to do intake. We provide hot meals, and then we start to help them through the things that they might need assistance with. So my idea here in this project is that I wanted people to come to us. That's also a different idea, because in the past, there's been this historical thing where every outreach provider goes to people's tents and goes to the beaches, which I understand that. But I also want to see a little bit of effort on the people that I'm working with. I want to see if they can come to me, and then I'm going to help the goers go. So far, which we've only been active 3 weeks because we just started the first week of February, we've already helped 1 individual to get housed. We are inviting individuals all throughout Kapolei. So they don't have to be homeless at the regional park. There are a few behind Foodland. There are some behind Walmart. There are some by the police station. We found some at Barber's Point. What we're telling them is that here, nearby you, we have an opportunity for you every Wednesday to come and work on your ID, maybe get into community court, clear up citations that you might have. So the 6 areas that I'm running it in is Kapolei. I have 1 in Nanukuli. I have 1 in Ma'ili, 1 in Wai'anae, there's 1 in Makaha, and then there's also another one in Lulu'ale. So if you want to know more about that, Restore, Reconnect, Revive, really what I've done is I've taken this program and I've given it to other nonprofits and empowered them to take the lead on this. So instead of waiting around for a program or an idea from the administration, I decided we need our own plan here for the West Side. And it's actually working pretty well. And if I can convert nonprofits and possibly churches into caseworkers, then we're going to get farther, because having 2 caseworkers is actually not working for us. So I'm very hopeful that by May, when we conclude the program, I'll have more data to share with the community. Lastly, I'll share some of the updates in infrastructure. I'm actually looking at a street right now, Kapolei Parkway, that has had severe collisions. In fact, last year, I think we had 30 total, because this area right where Canes is and Kapolei Elementary. There's a lot of new development, but Kapolei Parkway has turned into almost a freeway. And there are kids that have to cross this street to get to school every day. So we'll be having a town hall in April about the stoplights that are supposed to be put in here and what the timing looks like. The city is willing to put up gate treatments, which are the stanchions in the road to slow traffic down, but it's been a huge issue for us out here. The second thing that I wanted to update was Palai, which is up in Makakilo. It's the road right by Makakilo Elementary. We're working with the state and the city to put up a few raised crosswalks there. I believe that part of what the city's responsibility is to provide protection and safety for the community, especially around our elementary schools, which is why this stoplight is so needed right here. We have elementary school right here that these children need to be safe getting to school every day. The last update that I'll bring up in this area is that along Kapolei Parkway, if you look at the parcels on the left that are all abandoned, and there's a few parcels on the right, those are actually city properties. And so I'm trying to work with the city to see if we can't pull forward the plans that were originally intended for that. There's a triangular property right by Kapolei Hale that was supposed to be a bus transit center. We need to push forward and actually make it a transit center because right now we don't have one. So along the street right behind where Kalapavai Cafe is, they use that as a transit center. They have like porta potties, and what we really need is a bus station. Along the left side of Kapolei Parkway, if you're heading towards the judiciary, those parcels, two of them are going to be a senior housing, which I don't think will come up to about 2024 or 2025. That's going to be called Kapolei Parkway Villages. But there's 3 more parcels between there and the judiciary. I'm suggesting, and I'm going to meet with Governor Green this week, I'm suggesting that one of the parcels be a partnership with the state. Right next to the judiciary, it would be wonderful if we were able to do something like Punavai Rest Stop. If you've ever been to Punavai Rest Stop, it's in town, the city runs it, but it's a homeless outreach center where the top wing has medical services, the bottom wing has lockers, showers, places where you can rest your head, and also places where you can access services. What I've noticed with a lot of our homeless population is it's hard to know where to go to get the help that you need, which is why I set up this little satellite station up at Kapolei Regional Park. So I'm hoping that if the state is interested, that this can be kind of an extension of the courthouse. And perhaps as people come out of court, if they need those services, wound care, a place to rest your head, a kennel for your dog so that you can get some help, that maybe we could have this type of center out here in Kapolei. The other 2 parcels we're looking at being open space, possibly a dog park. Many people in Kapolei have asked me, why don't we have a dog park? So we're trying to work towards that end. But I'm going to conclude. Those are just a few updates. There's thousands of other things I could say, but I'll just keep it to that. So I'm going to open up for questions, and we'll do people in the room, and then we'll take some questions from people online. Yes, go ahead, sir.
How are you streamlining the permitting process?
So we have, I'll explain maybe all of the things I'm doing. So the one that I talked to you about was the adding things to the exemption list. The second thing that I'm changing in the law is that prior to 365 days, the department has to notify applicants. Unfortunately, right now in the law, they cancel your permit at 365 days, whether you like it or not. I think that is unfair because if it's the department's fault that the permit has been with them for over a year, why should you get a cancellation and then have to pay all the fees to get a new permit? So we're going to change that part in the law. Bill 6 is going to allow for a self certification. And we're going to go through an admin rulemaking process to allow smaller projects, the architect or the engineer to be able to self-certify their application. Now, it's still going to have to go through a handful of things to the department, but it won't have to go through all of the severity of the checks and the long waiting. The last thing that I'm introducing is called the SAI. So it's called a special assignment inspection. Right now, we are allowing special assignment inspections only for commercial, but not for residential. What a special assignment inspection is that they actually issue you the permit, and while you're in motion, they send an inspector out to make sure everything is okay, but that is faster than waiting in the permitting line. I think that it would be helpful if SAI was available to residents and not just commercial projects. So I'm going to be proposing that in the law as well. Aside from that, they have implemented a bot for the pre-screen process, but I've also put forward a resolution regarding relief workers. I don't know if everyone remembers during COVID that we hired relief workers for the Department of Labor for unemployment. back in the day, the Land Bureau of Conveyances also had a huge backlog and they had to hire relief workers. I sat down with Randy Pereira from HGEA last week and I asked him, would you be in favor of a small timeline of us hiring relief workers so we can clear out this backlog? He said he would be willing to work with the city as long as there was a specific timeline and that we're not swapping out civil servant positions. I think that we're not going to get there if we don't realize that with the amount of workload we have and the workers that we're burning them out. We need relief workers in there. So I'm hoping that we can push forward with that resolution that I put forward, and then the admin can start to talk about coming in and basically contracting out, not indefinitely, for a time period so that we can clear up the backlog. So far, that's what me and the director have worked on.
I sit on the board of directors of Palo Community Association. We put in for a request to build a community center in 07. We still don't have our community center because of permitting.
07?
07.
Wow. That's how severe this is, guys. So if you can support any of my pieces of legislation, I think the admin has to do a few things, but I also think the law has to change a little bit to ease up some of the overly burdensome bureaucracy. And then lastly, I think the department has to get the help they need. Question in the back?
Yeah, maybe it should be something done about it's rather than property taxes that people have to pay. And, you know, I've spoken to friends on Maui who pay significantly less. And it's especially difficult for guys that have Social Security and stuff to keep their homes because they keep taking up the value of our homes in a ridiculous manner. I mean, you know, last year alone, from last year to this year, they upped it over 300,000. I mean, what's up with that? I mean, I know the city is trying to pay for that $12 billion rail that nobody wanted, but you know, to hit the residents for that.
Yeah. Well, I'll share one thing that I'm introducing. So I talked 2 years ago when I first got elected about truth in taxation. Now, I don't know if anyone's heard of that concept. It's only in 6 states. So it's in Minnesota, Kansas, Utah, and I forget the last one. But basically, truth in taxation is a concept that the property taxes should be revenue neutral, meaning that if valuations go up and down, the revenue collection, not the rate, the collection should stay the same. So if valuations rise, tax rates should come down because no city should be using property taxes to fund all their debt and all of their projects. Property taxes were meant to support city operations, but not indefinitely on the backs of the residents up into perpetuity as valuations rise. So I did bring it up. Of course, the administration was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Well, you know, we need all those taxes. I was like, okay, but it's unfair that this is an unbudgeted amount for the residents, like how you said. I didn't budget for an extra $20,000 in property taxes, but now all of a sudden I'm hit with it because my house is worth more that is out of my control. So valuations rising indefinitely is a problem. So there's 2 parts of truth in valuation. One is that any district that has an increase, which in our side for District 1, we had a 13% increase in property taxes. I think on the North Shore, they had an 18% increase. Any district that has an increase should have a public hearing in their district to discuss the rates and to discuss what we're bringing it down to alleviate the burden to the residents. So I broke it up into 2 since I know the administration will fight me on the part where we need to bring down the rates, but I think we have to at least have a public hearing in every district that was affected because North Shore and West Side was heavily affected. Town, not as much, but in these districts where we have booming populations and new housing coming up, our houses are becoming worth $1 million. That's out of our control. So I am introducing that piece, the public hearing piece, which I think everyone will be for, but I need to get the administration where we actually use a calculation income. So I'm working through 2 different proposals with them because obviously I don't want to introduce something that they're all opposed to. I need to get to a place where the administration will say, yes, this is reasonable because we do have home exemptions, but that doesn't help very much. The home exemption right now for 65 and under is 100,000. The home exemption for 65 and older is 140,000. And our houses and our cost of living here is high, way too high. So those 2 pieces are separate, but that's what I'm trying to work on with them. And in our budget hearing, I think on Tuesday, we'll be discussing Bill 61 and 62. they're okay. I read both of them and they're both trying to adjust the whole helping local residents, but I think we have to actually do something a little more drastic. So I'm trying to get to that point. Go ahead.
That's why the exodus to the mainland,
Oh, yes.
because a lot of the families are leaving because of that.
Yeah, and I think the two things personally that I feel like the city has the most control over as far as taxes or fees is property taxes and vehicle registration. Because those two things, we're over that. Yeah, the city's over those two things, and our vehicle registration on this island is so high. I know a lot of guys that ship their cars to other islands, register it and bring it back because that's cheaper than paying here. So I do think that that's something the city has to look at is, sure, we're not in charge of income tax. We're not in charge of GE tax, but we are in charge of property tax and we are in charge of vehicle registration. So we can help alleviate the burden for the residents, but you know what that means? That means we're gonna have to cut back on things, you know, maybe not give money to things that aren't a priority. And that's very hard because I think that in government and it's just a misprioritization. There's money for everything. And if there isn't money going into then that means that it's not a priority. So what we have to do is get back to our priorities and fund those first. And if there's extra, then we do everything else. But we're not going to make it there if we keep thinking that we have infinite money to spend on everything. We don't. We really need to take care of the residents, keep them housed and keep them living here. Sir?
Decades ago, the same problem happened in California, and they had something called Prop 13.
Oh, yes.
You bought your house, that's the price you paid for your taxes. It didn't go up until you sold it to the new owner. Then there's based on the price. It's your taxes never went up.
I've heard of Prop 13 and we've actually talked about introducing it. But again, the administration is so hesitant because last year we absorbed the Department of Emergency Services from the state, which was a $50 million unfunded responsibility that was put on us. So from what I'm trying to say is there's two perspectives. There's this one perspective of, oh, look, property taxes went up. Great, we can pay for all these things that we're responsible for. There's another perspective, which I have, that the property taxes help with this. And if we have more expenses, then we need to find other revenue streams because we can't lean on the property taxes as our own revenue stream. The city owns the Blaisdell. The city owns the Shell. The city owns the zoo. The city owns, can issue private activity bonds. There's lots of different things the city can do, but I think we need to not look at property taxes as our only source of revenue. And then as things balloon up, say, oh, good thing we collected more taxes because we have all this debt. We have to find other ways to do it so that local residents aren't disadvantaged. But yes, Prop 13 is pretty extreme, but it is the same thing. It makes it where you always know what to budget for your property taxes. I think that that's fair to come up with something that is the residents are able to budget. Other questions? Okay, we'll
Safety.
go. Okay, go ahead, safety.
Coming off of H1, going over towards Kapolei Parkway, where Home Depot and Costco is. That concrete barrier needs to be removed to make that left turn lane longer because it very quickly fills and traffic starts backing up the hill towards the overpass. If they just took out 20 or 30 feet of that concrete, allowed that lane to go over, a lot more cars could be out of that direct down to Barbara's Point lane.
You're talking about the intersection, Costco, what is the opposite side? Home Depot. That is sort of city property. Campbell Estates still kind of maintains it, but I can look into it. I don't think the city has full ownership, but we can still work together with them to fix that. I think once they finish upgrading that and the road that's going into the harbor, then they're turning it over to the city, but I can still work on that. Other questions?
Regarding the homelessness situation, obviously, I'm pretty sure you guys are looking at why they're homeless, whether it's mental health issues or some other issues. But, in terms of the monies that they put into whatever departments and stuff, I'm kind of thinking, government has a way of being very inefficient in doing things, and the private sector tends to be a lot more, the dollar was farther. And I'm thinking perhaps if we focus more on working with the nonprofits, partnering with them, whether it's churches, independent outreach programs, whatever, to have them deal with those people, you know, and I guess get more bang for the buck, you know.
So we do partner with nonprofits. What I've seen though in partnering with them is that we have a very small amount of nonprofits that do homeless work. We have US Vets, we have Kapolei, we have Catholic Charities, we have maybe one or two very small others, but that's it. So what I had told the city was that I feel like part of the problem is that these small groups that are over homelessness are getting lots of different contracts, which are already spreading them thin. And I believe that the contract areas are too large. So if you give money to Kapolei West and you say, hey, can you do outreach from Eva to Kaena Point? That contract is too large. Tell them to do a smaller portion and then fund a different nonprofit for the next portion, because these contract areas, they can't cover. So to your point, I think what I have noticed is that there's nonprofits that want to help the community, and I'm trying to convert their service into basically a caseworker profile. Because a lot of the churches, they feed meals, they give out clothes. What I'm trying to teach the churches is all the legal side of homelessness. How do you help someone with an ID? How do you help someone with welfare? How do you help someone get into housing? How do you help someone get into community court? Because a lot of the outreaches are very charity-based. But in my world, if you have the legal component, we can actually pull people to get a job, because many of them have to clear up these warrants they have out for their arrest, and then they can get into work. I would say a handful of people that I helped in this homeless program actually did not go into housing, but I got them jobs. Now that sounds kind of backwards, right? Because in the city, everyone goes, oh, just throw them in a house, throw them in a house. A lot of people are very used to living outside, but I can get them a job. And if they want to work, that's step one. And many of them, after working for 4 or 5 months, eventually earned enough to say, you know what, I can put down a deposit and yeah, I'll move into housing. So I think we have to also be open to the idea that maybe housing might come second, third, or fourth and not first. Because if somebody who's homeless wants to get a job or they want to get an ID, help them with the thing that they're ready to do. And the things they're not ready to do, just put that in the pipeline as they get ready to do it. So I believe what you're saying is true. My angle is to work with nonprofits that are already out there that are actually not homeless based and convert them into what I would call a caseworker nonprofit, because that's kind of what we need right now. I don't think there's any questions online. I asked if anyone has questions, you can type it in the chat, but I don't see any questions. I know I'm a little over my time, Senator. I appreciate it. Any other questions in the room? I'm shocked Lee Cobian doesn't have a question. I'm almost gonna fall on the ground. Like I almost was like, am I gonna have a heart attack? He didn't ask a question.
Yeah, there's a House Bill 378 regarding the methadone clinics. What's your stand on that?
Is that, can you brief me, Lee? What is it about?
Well, it's pretty much supporting providing safe places for methadone distribution.
Well, I don't know too much about that bill. I'm sure the senator knows more than I do.
I wanted to ask you a question regarding the homeless. What component of the homeless issue is drug related from what you see out there?
No one quote me on this.
50%?
I think all of it.
Really?
I'm not saying that everybody's on drugs. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that almost all the people I help have extracurricular activity.
Yeah.
So a lot of the people that I help that don't get off the street is because their extracurricular activity prohibits them from living with their family. Their extracurricular activity prohibits them from getting a job. Their extracurricular activity prohibits them from integrating themselves into society because they have to hide themselves. So, you know, one of the homeless that I helped, she came crying to me and she was like, my boyfriend got arrested and he didn't do anything bad. But, you know, I asked her, I said, who else's tents are by you guys? Oh, so and so, so and so. I said, do you know that all of those guys have warrants out for their arrest? So what I was trying to explain to her is, if you live in an area where there's criminals, they may mistake you for a criminal because you're all around them. And secondly, if you're living outside where you're not supposed to live, you are prone to arrest. If you don't want to be prone to arrest, then get inside a house, get inside a shelter. And she was like, oh, I see what you're saying. I said, you are exposing yourselves to the elements, to the police, to other criminals. People are stealing your stuff. Even though that might seem like an easier lifestyle for you, what would be easier for you is to have a place to hold your things where people don't touch it. So I think in my perception of it, it's hard for it to not be drug related. It doesn't mean that you consume drugs. It might be that you sell them or that you substance abuse issues is what they use to numb themselves, to not deal with the issue. One lady I knew, I don't know, she goes to my church and I told her, I said, you're numbing yourself. Your dad lives 2 blocks away, move in with your family. But the parents were like, we can't have her in here. We're foster parents. We can't have someone on drugs in our foster home. So she had to go get clean, but she eventually moved back with her mom and dad. So choices.
There's a homeless guy that lives right next to us. And he lives in his car. And the reason I asked that is he's the nicest guy. He's got a job. He just literally lives in his car. He's very respectable, and I was just shocked. My wife was all worried about it. I'm like, you know, and I got to know him, and he's just like any other guy that he lives in.
Yeah. We have a handful that live in their cars that actually are waiting for senior housing. So I'm hoping that the senior center will open because, again, people on fixed incomes, they're not moving into any apartment that's $1,200 a month. So I've been also encountering that problem is older senior homeless individuals need lower cost housing. So I'm trying to partner them with, you know, places where they can live. Other questions? Anyone online? Okay, I don't see. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you, Andrea. I really appreciate listening to you, and thank you so much for all that you've done over the years. I just wanted to, you mentioned about how you were working with other people in the community. There was a statistic I heard recently. If every church would take in just 2 members, 2 homeless, houseless members, we would end the problem across the entire nation. 2 members. And I think you've started that by looking at small areas. Who's right there in your area? If they could take 1 or 2, and then great leadership from people like you and the senator, great leadership coordinating that effort, I think that's the solution. Government cannot handle the big problem.
Nope.
But one by one, and I think you've really touched on the solution. And I thank you that your insight and your just working with the community, your understanding. That's the solution, and I fully support what you're trying to do. And I just wanted to commend and thank you for your work.
Thank you. Yeah, the churches that I'm working with are Assembly of God, LMS, which is a Samoan church, City of Joy, Ark of Safety, and then the rest of them are just nonprofits. But to your point, if someone's working in a nonprofit, they have a heart for the community. So they want to do these things. I feel like everyone I've worked with, I have not had to coerce. And many of them already work with homeless, but they don't have all the tools. So I'm just equipping them with the tools, and I'm helping them be data-based in their approach, because we have folders for every single homeless person. We track their data. We see who their caseworker is. So I'm trying to work very meticulously through it. So not through hordes of people, but meticulously, like you said, 1 by 1. Where is so-and-so at? How's his ID coming? Who's helping so-and-so with the job? We got to get real specific or we're not going to get there.
Amazing. Well, if you ever need help with data, I do data. I'd be available to volunteer anytime.
Oh, great. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions online? Okay. I'll turn it back to the senator. Thank you.
I've got a question. Sorry.
No.
I'm the Baha'i representative for the Oahu Baha'i community on the Hawaii Interfaith Power and Light Committee. Many of our synagogues, churches, mosques, martial arts bars are not configured to allow for solar or vertical access winter months. Trying to get into a solar field and being able to buy a couple of panels in there does not seem to exist here. Is there any effort to promote that?
Well, I'm meeting with the mayor this Friday about a solar app, because actually part of the permitting issues that we have is trying to get the solar guys in their own permitting line, because solar permitting is separate. So I could talk to them about that issue. Your issue is about how to get solar for churches?
Yes.
Okay. I'll bring it up because the whole solar industry is going to be with me. So I'm meeting with them on Monday to prep for the mayor's meeting on Friday, but give me some time to kind of come back with you.
Okay, Peter Savio.
No, Peter.
Supposedly trying to build one of those fields where you can go in and buy as many panels as you need. And he's been at it for over a year from what I've been able to ascertain and gotten nowhere.
Well, let me get your information because I don't know if you guys saw the solar coming up on this Makakilo
Oh,
Hill,
yes,
but that is actually a community purchase agreement, which means that it's a company where people can invest in and then they can basically get the solar credit. So HECO came up with this new program because some people don't have panels, they live in condos. So they're like, how do I get a solar credit? I can never put it up on my building. So there are community purchasing agreements that HECO has set up.
and the condo roofs are designated as commercial.
It's unfortunate.
Yes.
Condo roofs being designated as commercial is wrong. Like,
Yes.
because that means that any local resident in a condo can't have
Yes.
a discounted electric bill, which is unfortunate. Thank you guys. I'll give it back to the center.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And Councilwoman, if you have to leave, we totally understand. I know that there's at least 20 years ago when I was the councilman for this district, there were tons of potholes, but maybe you've got them all filled. So you can stick around for the rest of the meeting. Yeah, very, very enlightening stuff. When you were talking about homelessness, and then Gary, when you brought it up, when I was on the city council, and I got a call back in 2003, 20 years ago, from somebody on the Waianae Coast. And he was screaming at me into the phone, basically saying, I'm a taxpayer and I can't take my family across the beach, across the street. I can't take them to the beach because the beach is so filled with empty beer bottles, empty whiskey bottles, used condoms. It is just, it's the worst pot. And he was yelling, and my taxpayer dollars, what are you going to do about it? So I said, well, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to come out and take a look. So I drove out there and he took me across the street and it was exactly as he had described. I was in awe. I was just, are you kidding me? It was absolutely filthy. And, you know, he was crying. He said, I've got my kid. I can't even bring my kids over. Would you take your kids here? And so Jeremy Harris was the mayor at the time, and I was driving back to Kapolei, and so next day I contacted the mayor's office and I told him about the issue. And within a couple of days, I got a call from the same gentleman on the Waianae Coast, and he said, you got to come out here. I said, well, what's going on? He says, there is a caravan of trucks and flatbed trucks, garbage trucks, you know, all kinds of, there's like at least 10 vehicles that are on, they're parking across the street. And he was just, thank you so much. I don't know who you call, but thank you. And I went out there again, and they totally cleaned up everything. Now, of course, you know, it's all going to get messed up again, right? Because that doesn't solve the problem, but it solved his immediate problem. And as I actually spent some time on the beach, talking to, at that time, I think there were over 1,500 people that were living on the beach on the Waianae Coast. That's the number that was given by the mayor's office. But I learned that it's a very complicated, complex problem, because as you were saying, Gary, you had those with mental issues, mental health issues. You had the Hawaiian saying, what do you mean? This is my beach. You get the hell out of here. I ain't going anywhere. You had those who were economically, you know, had just lost their jobs. You can't just say, okay, let's just clean them all out. But I just really liked your idea of microcosm. Start off small instead of just, and then just see how you can have an impact and then grow from there. And instead of having this, let's go in and, yeah, it's a great idea, Andrea. So let me know if I can assist in any way on your project, and I'll get the word out to our constituents as well. But yeah, thanks. Okay, we've got about 10 minutes left, and I'm not going to go into some of the legislation. As I mentioned, we're about halfway through, but I want to go through some of the community. Why don't we do that, Meg, at least, and then take some questions near the end. So we had the green drop. Yeah, so this is, I don't know if you're familiar with Green Drop. They had their grand opening on February 16th over at Kamakana. And so it's got a very convenient location there. It's next to by Wendy's. And you can swing in and drop off your gently used clothing and shoes and household items and more. And then your donations will help support the nonprofits that Green Drop works with. They are a profit corporation, but they work with many nonprofits, in particular, United Cerebral Palsy Association of Hawaii. So, yeah, I was tied up in meetings at the Capitol and hearings, and so my community liaison on the left there, Genevieve Pomerantz, she presented an honorary certificate on behalf of on my behalf in the state Senate to the Green Drop team. And the guy, Seth Haviland there, he's the senior operations manager. He flew all the way over from Texas for the celebration. And then the other gentleman on the other far right is Brandon Souza, who presented an honorary certificate on behalf of the new representative for the area, Diamond Garcia, on the House side. And then on this, the Ho'opili sneak peek here, it's a conceptual rendering of the newest Ho'opili Community Association park that's coming there. It's called Pa'ani Park. And it'll have Ho'opili's first pickleball courts for you pickleball fans. And being an ex-tennis pro, the tennis courts, I'm told, are on the way, but they're focusing on pickleball right now. They are still waiting on final permitting approval. Let's hope that it's not going to be too long. But we did not get any dates as far as when it'll be done. And then the last couple of meetings, since I've had so many calls and emails about the Hawaiian Humane Society moving out here, their project is the $28 million facility. It's on 5.5 acres on Fort Weaver Road, about a half a mile from Queens at the corner of Old Fort Weaver Road. And so D.R. Horton, the developer, gave that parcel, that 5.5 acres, donated it to the Hawaiian Humane Society in 2017. And so the new facility will have a 2-story main building, will offer a full range of core services, including adoptions, animal admissions, veterinary care, and spay and neuter services. There'll also be 3 dog pavilions, 2 cat pavilions, and a small animal pavilion, and 2 gazebos, among other features, and a community dog park. So lots of folks are looking forward to the community dog park, which will open to the public. And the good news is that they're scheduled to open in April, in just a couple months. That's the good news. Yeah.
Does that obviate the need for another dog park?
Oh, no. We've got one in Kalailoa that's not being used very much as well. It's right there on Roosevelt. And with that, I won't go into, since we don't have much time left, I'll just leave the rest for actually, I'll just talk a little bit just to give you a sense, and then we'll take some Q&A. There were 3,132 bills introduced this session, and that's about 600 more than the 2022 session. Every year, about 2,500 to 3,000 bills actually are introduced, and only about 200 or 300 of them actually pass into law. And so out of that 3,132 bills that were introduced, can you guess how many are still alive?
300?
Nobody knows. Actually, we'll find out next Friday. And that's what's called first decking. And that's when all the bills that are passed from their committee hearings are submitted to the clerk, and then the clerk's office, they process them, and they send us to all the senators and the representatives a list of them. And then we spend the next 3 days, that's March 5th, 4th, 5th, and 6th, looking at all the bills and deciding which ones that we're going to vote on. And that voting date is March 7th for 3rd reading. And if you remember from your high school civics class, each bill that becomes a law has to go through 3 readings in each chamber, the House and the Senate. And then they're sent to the governor, where he has 3 choices: either to sign them into law, it becomes law automatically, or he can veto. So, yeah. And then the first crossover, where the Senate bills will cross to the House and vice versa, will be March 9th. And then the whole process begins again with hearings. Yeah. So I'll leave it at that. We have a few minutes left for questions. Joe, you had a question about the entertainment district.
Yeah, with the gym complex expanding for UH to take care of all their football games. I think it would be a great place to put that $600 million for Hawaiian housing and low-cost housing, because Kaka'ako Makai is going to be battling waves in 20 years.
Mhm.
But I don't see the logic of having what is proposed, a big stadium for what?
Mhm.
Bruno Mars coming once every 2 years?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, it's not going to be used for that.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm with
So
you.
why
I
not
think,
spend that $600 million there, switch parcels that are now available in Colorado. But, I understand why people don't want high rises there.
Yeah.
With them instead of the entertainment district.
Yeah. But I'm with you in terms of not expanding the Aloha Stadium and just using the Ching Field over UH and just expanding that as much as we need to. And yeah,
Well, they've got to raise it up to 17,000.
right.
For,
Yeah. But yeah,
that's what they're doing.
anyone else? Questions, issues, concerns?
What is the bill you're excited for?
Ah, I thought you'd never ask. The one that, chairing the Ag Environment Committee, as I said, it's my 7th year, and we've been, and you hear this all the time, you see it on the news. We spend $3 billion every year importing 85 to 90% of our food, and well, what are we going to do about it? And on the mainland, when I'm at conferences and we start talking story with other ag chairs from other states, well, they say, well, I mentioned that. Well, why? You guys are islands. You don't have any ag land. The fact is we have close to 1 million acres of ag land that's not being used. We need farmers, right? And so the big picture is, how do you attract young people into farming? Right? That's really, how do you change that negative stigma? And I've told that story before here at this meeting about the mom who has her son who's in middle school now, and ever since he was 2 years old, he loved being in the family garden, weeding, and just was this. And then all of a sudden, she notices she's not going out to the garden to weed anymore. He lives. And so she says, Junior, what's up? And Junior says, oh, well, Mom, my teacher told me, he's in middle school now, my teacher told me that there's no future in farming. This is a farming family for generations. For generations. And you have a teacher telling a kid who has an innate inborn interest in being a farmer that the future is in high tech. So the mom that called me, she was screaming. I get a lot of screamers, by the way. I don't know why they call me. I'm going to refer them to you. But that's the main thing. And that is, and one of the things I've been mentioning, and we need to do this, hopefully, if we can get others to join with us, is where we start is a viral campaign with some, whether it's TikTok or whatever it might be, but just some very catchy, short ads, vignettes, trying to change that negative stigma to a positive. That every speech I give to young people, I was one the other day at there was a Future Farmers of America. They had a little workshop of ag teachers, but the lieutenant governor was there, the head of the Department of Ag, a number of just a really good cross section of people who are, Hawaii Farm Bureau was there, Hawaii Farmers Union were there. And as I mentioned, I talked briefly, every speech I give, I say farming is a noble profession, no less noble than being a doctor, a lawyer, or an attorney, a doctor, a lawyer, business person, because you're engaged in activity that all of us do, that we eat. So somehow we need to change that negative stigma. And that's what I want to do. But let me just hang on, Gary, and I'll take your question. The bill that I'm working on, that's at the top of my list, is Senate Bill 420. And this is on sustainable food systems. And a sustainable food system, for those of you who don't know, that's basically all the producers, the farmers, ranchers, whatever, the retailers, the members of the community, non-governmental organizations, government agencies, everybody getting together to create a vibrant and resilient local food economy. That's what we need to do here. That's how we get rid of that importing all that food. But how do you do that unless you actually plan something? So what SB 420 does, it establishes a working group made up of and I was actually criticized during the hearing by some of the members of the various groups that said there's too many on the working group. And my comeback was, yes, that may be true, but we want to get everybody at the table, right? To talk story about this, so come up with a plan. So why not? And so who we have, there's about 23 or 24 people on the working group. You got someone from the Senate, someone from the House, 2 from the UH system from CTAR, that the CTAR is going to choose, the College of Tropical Ag, member of Department of Ag, a member from the Office of Climate Change, Sustainability and Resiliency from the city and county, representative from the Native Hawaiian Health Department, affiliated with the John Burns Medicine of the med school at UH, 2 members of the Native Hawaiian community to be selected by the chairperson of the Board of Ag, someone from the Hawaii Farm Bureau, Hawaii Food Bank, a representative from the ag sector, 4 representatives from the ag sector from each of the counties. We want to make sure each of the counties has a voice. The Farm to School Community, Hawaii Food Service Alliance, Hawaii Food Industry Association, Hawaii Farmers Union, the Fishermen's Alliance for Conservation and Tradition, also the commercial fishing sector, and also the Hawaii Cattlemen's Council. That's about everybody that you could think of, right? So we get these guys together, and here's what they focus on. Food is a human right and healthy food for all, social equity and food justice, food system resilience, ag and food system sustainability, food at the center of a circular economy, sustainable education, workforce development, and fair labor, and good food governance. That is what their homework is. That's what they're going to focus on. And then they've got to report back to the legislature 20 days prior to each session saying, here's our plan. And I think we're giving them some time, I think to 2025, before the 2025 session to give us their first report. Yeah. So hopefully with that, we'll be able to actually do something instead of just saying the same thing over and over again about why aren't we doing anything? Okay, Gary.
I was going to high school, we used to have an FFA and 4-H, groups. Do the high schools still have that?
Yes,
All of them?
yes. Not all of them.
Okay.
In fact, the Future Farmers of America, I mean, to talk to some of these kids that'll bring tears to your eyes, they are so excited about farming, about feeding people. And that's why we need to encourage these young people, right? And they used to be I remember looking at their enrollment numbers for FFA, and they were extremely high. And then all of a sudden, it's taking a big dip, but now it's starting to rise again. So yeah, we're doing all we can to encourage them and to get involved. Another good piece of news is our new Congresswoman, Senator Jill Takuda, who served in the Senate. She was the chair of the Ways and Means Committee. Very happily, she's on the Ag Committee at the federal level. So that means we're going to be working very closely with her to get any kind of federal funding that we can use to help with our situation. Okay, our time's up. Anyone else? If we didn't cover anything that you want to talk, just send me an email and we'll get back to you. And thank you all very much for coming. Online, aloha and mahalo. Thank you.
Did you have a chance to read the book review on